Hey, welcome back to another Backyard Professor Chess videos. I have another game for you. The thing we love about the Grandmasters the most is that they've played a lot of chess. And so we get to be the direct beneficiaries of it, truly. This is a game by Skembris and Beliavsky. It was played in 1994, so it's not like ancient history or anything. I got this game out of the extremely interesting series of books, Chess Openings for Black Explained. This is by Lev Albert and Zinzi and some others. And they have one for White also. So those are good books. I wish they would have included more games, but it's about the analysis of the different chess openings and so on and so forth. Chess openings are fun to learn. They're necessary to learn. But it's actually, and I've been told this by a lot of people, it's actually more important to study tactics and chess endings. So that's what my New Year's resolution is. I've thought about it long enough. I'm done thinking. I'm ready to get moving here. For this next year, I'm going to work on tactics and chess endings. Just so you know. Anyway, this game is really interesting for a number of reasons. Make sure all of my queens are on the right side, otherwise everyone will know that I don't know anything about chess, which I don't, but still. The queen ought to at least be over here where the rook is to start. That way she's got to jump on the game, right? And knight f6 coming up. c4. And e6. e6 or c6? e6. I've got to write more carefully. Otherwise I'm going to muff the game. Now instantly black will go bishop b4 check. Developing his piece, hitting the king already. Developing his piece and saying no, not today. But he doesn't necessarily exchange right now. He gives his bishop support in case they want to exchange that way. Then the queen will want to come up, and then it gets really interesting and gooey, but that's not what they do. White doesn't worry about that at this point. He prepares to fianchetto his king bishop, which is a nice sort of thing. Black brings out yet another knight. And of course, if you're going to fianchetto, then fianchetto for Pete's sake. Bringing out the second bishop, black decided, okay, now it's time to exchange. I will exchange now. So he does. Doggone it. And the knight on B takes that bishop. So we're having a fairly smooth, blasé, a lot of non-issue opening, and yet there's a lot that's beginning to build up behind the background, as usual in a Grandmaster game. That is usually what happens, with which, of course, goes right over the heads of all of we amateurs, and so we don't grasp a single thing about chess at all. So the first confrontation of the center begins. And instead of exchanging at this point and opening up the D file, White wants to keep the D file closed. So he presses forward with his pawn. Of course, the knight has to move. So he comes back to B8. And now White looks like he's closing the center off pretty strong. So we've seen this before. Instantly, black decides to charge up the queen side here a little bit. Knight comes down to E1. Black will castle. Very interesting what black does in this game. Let's see, where is this? Knight to D3. Yeah, he brings his other knight up. Good grief, Batman. Here we go. Knight A6 and A3. The queen side's kind of being built up somewhat. Bishop comes way up here to G4, saying hello to White's queen. And the little stupid runt of a pawn gets in the way. Drats. He could have had a queen. Darn it, man. That sucks. So the bishop says, okay, so the little lady doesn't want to have a rendezvous. I'm going to come back home and pout. So he does. Now, again, the queenside thrust with b4, because, and it makes sense because the center is more or less locked, so you can't do a lot through the center, so they look like they're coming up on the queen side. He's going to gently, possibly open up the center instead of completely close it off on the C file to have the contesting there. So it's getting kind of interesting. The queen decides, gosh, I'm going to go to my own side of the board. And here is where he takes the D pawn, and C takes the D pawn, and A takes the B pawn, and A takes the B pawn. So we have an open rook file. We have an open bishop file. No one's occupied that yet. We have a pretty powerful, there's 4 pieces on that queen side of white. There's plenty of room to maneuver, so he could really put together something on the queen side. Although black does have access to the queen side fairly easy, so at this point it's a very interesting, more or less even battle. And then black puts the knight to c7. Queen bumps back to b2. Bishop comes up to b5. Now black owns the b5 square. Kind of an interesting post for the queen side. White can't contest it, so black takes it over. Rook decides, I'm going to come to a3, probably because he wants to double his rooks. Black says, no, I don't want you to double the rooks on the file. So it's time to swap a pair of rooks. Queen takes the a3. And now bishop comes to a6. An outpost where the bishop and the pawn are comfortable together, and he's got a long, wonderful diagonal here. Possible use for future excursions. He brings his other rook onto the open file, always a good move. The knight now comes up to b5, hitting the queen, and the queen comes to a5. I honestly think black's got the better of this one because of what he's now able to do, powerfully centralize his knight on an outpost. That is a good-looking outpost. This is well played using general chess principles that in a closed board, which means lots of pawns, knights are more comfortable when they get on outposts. There is no pawn here that can ever chase that knight away. There is no pawn here, it's passed, that can chase that knight away. Therefore, the only way to get rid of that powerful posted knight is to exchange it. That's ideal. That's really nice how he set that up. Bishop comes to f1. And knight comes to h5. And knight comes back to f2. The king really has pretty good guard at this point, doesn't he? I mean, there's nothing really, neither king looks really super weak. The pawns, it's true, on whites have moved forward a little bit, so there are some weaknesses around the king. For instance, the h3 and g2 squares are weak. That's a weak pawn. That's a weak pawn. Yes, the bishop's here, and he better be. And this knight is also guarding the squares here and here and here. But there are some potential weaknesses around the king. Black's king side looks very comfortable, very solid. Nothing is directly attacking or threatening the black. Just pointing some stuff out on a general basis for those of us who don't quite yet grasp chess, myself. Repeating information is a constantly beautiful way to learn chess a little better. Now watch what happens. There are weaknesses on the king's side of white that I just pointed out. But the one I didn't point out is this one. The E2 square. And guess who wants to have it? The bishop. When you see a weak square, then possess it. And that's what black does. This is the beginning of a lot of serious difficulties for white, simply because he can't control the weak squares. So that's a hint when we see the Grandmaster games. When you see weak squares in your opponent's position, either control them or possess them, because it just cramps everything. It puts all kinds of bother into it. Rook comes to C3. Queen comes to G5. And now if there's any question in your minds, you get to erase them. This is one of the greatest game of checkers we have ever seen, because that's what we want to study in these Backyard Professor chess videos, is how to play checkers. And this is one sure sign that we're playing checkers, because when they move their queen over toward the king side and they have other pieces in the center able to come up and they're possessing weak squares, you're just about to get a checker championship. Just so you know. This is directly a kingside attack, and observe where the white queen is. At least 2 moves away from helping out. Yes? Watch what happens. Now, there's the first move for the white queen to say, whoa, my monarch might be getting attacked. And watch what happens here. Bam! F5. Every one of black's pieces is in the attack, utilizing the full shebang. That's how to do it. And we've seen other videos that show this. Some videos they don't. But some games the grandmasters can just wipe each other out with just 2 or 3 pieces. Not you and I. You and I, being the amateurs that we are, me more than you, it's best to utilize everybody, just like this game shows us. Games like this are fun for that reason, right? So E takes the F. That insolent little pawn cannot get away with that charge. And queen takes the F. So by pressing the F5, he opened up the file for his rook, right? Yes, the queen is on the file in front of the rook also, but look at the extra piece of that rook on that open file against white's king side. Look how that changes the nature of this attack. It's remarkable, isn't it? What's the difference here? This is worth taking a moment just to see. That doesn't look nearly as good as that, does it? Good little lesson to learn. When you attack, put everybody at it. Yeah, and if you have to, get rid of a pawn. It's okay, especially if it's in front of a rook on an open file on the king's side. See, this file is useless. Has nothing to do with the theme. This file is useless. It has nothing to do with the theme. However, the rook being here isn't so badly placed. It could be better, but he is coming across here, so he can be a defender. And it's essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing with the queen. So just so you know, White hasn't just abandoned his king. Everybody has the ability to be there if they need to. The other reason why it was so critical to press that F5, wasn't it? Yeah, because white more or less has every piece that can defend. So black should have every piece to attack as best he can. That makes sense. Observe how the weak square that the black bishop possesses affects this attack. This is a superb game to show the benefits of possessing the weak squares. This is really good. In fact, just keep your eye on this guy. He is something else. He is something else. Something else. No, he's still a bishop, but he is something else. Okay, let's see here. Queen take F5. Bishop G2. A very good defender of a king side. Right, the bishop. Knight F6 comes down here to Knight F6. Rook C7, and there's a question mark. They're saying now that the rook shouldn't have done that. He really is needed back at home. Yeah, here we go. Here's the first salvo. Bam, rook takes the pawn again, breaking up that white king side, producing more weaknesses. Really important in a king side attack to do that. And now the rook takes B7. Well, we're seeing at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more moves before the pawn can ever get in there. At a minimum 5. So that's the wrong strategy. Doggone it. You took a powerful piece, and now that he's taken the pawn, he's 2 moves away from getting back home if he's really desperately needed, which unfortunately he's going to be. So that was an error in strategy. It did not help him to worry about that pawn. It really didn't. It didn't work. And for instance, watch. Knight to G4. Doesn't that move just scream at you? Now notice he was over here, or over here on 5, and then he came back down, but now look at where it puts him. Really good attacking square. Absolutely superb attacking square. According to Vukovic, the art of attack in chess. I'm telling you, that is a great move. It's so good, and here's part of what makes it good. White has a great defender here. But he's got to exchange it because that square is so good for that knight that he can't let him stay there. Nope, it's not happening. Forcing white to exchange a defender. The position of black is just better. It is. For one main reason, the open file with the queen coordinated with the rook on the king side. Man, that's tough to beat. The other issue is one that we see in many, many hundreds of videos from the grandmasters from yesteryear on right up to yesterday, is the centrally posted knight. This guy can get here quick. You see that? He may look like he's far away. No, he's one hop away and he's in there. So it just seems black is better posted. Well, there's no question. So this is getting critical. Here's this bishop again. I wanted to mark him special because he inhabited the weak square deep within this area of white's camp, and now he is absolutely clobbering the white defenders. Good teamwork between the knight that forced the other knight away, and now the bishop has access to other pieces to take. That's good teamwork. It's teamwork because all of the pieces are in there. And now look at the, I mean, holy cow. This is not good for white. Not very good. Well, Knight comes to f1, absolutely. This does two things in white's favor. It does bring up another defender, and it opens up the access for the queen to get in here instantly. So before we saw the queen was down here and out of play, and white appropriately brought her up, but then he stupidly, or mistakenly, I should say mistakenly, not stupidly, that's too judgmental, but then he mistakenly took his rook out of the game. So he is, for all intents and purposes, he's playing a piece less in the defense. And that means a win for black if he plays it right. So keep that in mind when you're playing your chess games too. Anyway, enough talk. Show us something. Okay, here we go. The posted knight. Now the other knight gets into the act. Check. Protected by, guess who? That incredible bishop. And guess where the knight posted to deliver the check? On that weak square. What a coordination, right? Yeah, that is incredible. King simply goes to h1. Now the bishop comes back to apply even more pressure against the defender of the bishop, the king, which is the white bishop. White has to try to swap that bishop without losing his bishop. That is a high order. That is a high order. Yikes. I don't think he's going to get to do it. Knight takes g3. Thank you to the efforts of the bishop eliminating so many pieces. The knight can now do his job, and now white resigns at this point. And here's why. It's if h takes g3, then it's very obvious that you go check. Because the bishop is pinned to the king by that phenomenal bishop. Did he play a role in this game or what? He played a role in this game because of the weak square and being able to possess that weak square. That bishop was absolutely fundamental in this game, right? So the bishop can't take, so the king has to move, and now, of course, you just take the bishop. Hey! I found a one-move checkmate. Woohoo! I am redeemed. Thank you, thank you. Hold it. Everybody hold your applause. So that's quite a game. That was fun to see how on the queen's side, black got to the bishop here with the pawn. Yeah, he was way down here. He didn't have a whole lot of influence early on in the game, but he was safe there on the queen side while white was trying to march in. You know, at one time we saw 4 of white pieces trying to get something on the queen side. What black was able to do is, one, establish his bishop with the pawn here, and the second thing he was able to do is establish his knight in the center with the pawn here. So we had the line to the king using the bishop to that weak square, and we had a knight on the outpost supporting that weak square, supporting that bishop. So that was a fantastic look at how just one weak square, just one, can completely obliterate you. This is a fabulous game to illustrate that. So there's your chess video. Thanks for watching my chess videos. I love making these things. They're a lot of fun. I'm enjoying learning. I'm not ready to play online chess yet. I'm not good enough. I'm not even going to hide the fact. There's no point in wiping out my psychology and wrecking my enthusiasm by going online. I don't know if I trust online chess, to be honest with you. There's too many ways to use computers and apps these days. You don't know if you're playing people or not. So at this point, my goal is for this next year, I'm going to get I'm going to try to get a little bit stronger at tactics and endgame. And then I will begin playing either in tournaments or online. But I'm not ready for it yet, and I'm not going to pretend to be. So in the meantime, I am learning, and I may as well share my journey with you, right? Wanna be Grandmaster. Hey, that'd make a great t-shirt, wouldn't it? I want to be a Grandmaster someday when I grow up. When I get as old as dust. Stick around. I have more videos. No, I'm not bluffing. Yes, I'm truly serious. And that's rare because I have discovered I am never serious. Seriously.